Okay, so I mean, I guess 2021 might be better than 2020, but it's still too soon to say. I mean, really too soon. And given the fact that I've pretty much only read manga, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that great. We don't know. Hello, beautiful bookworms! My name is Katerina, and welcome to my channel. And today I am going to be doing a wrap-up for January because I actually read some stuff, which wasn't that much because, as I've said in my intro, I have read four mangas? I think four mangas, I'm not sure. And I have finished a book that I've actually started in December and didn't finish in December, obviously, if I finished it in January. Focus, Katerina. Okay, we're focusing. Great. So you might see my screen doing this. Apparently, the shelf where my phone is starting to fall, which is not pleasant because there's books there and there's candles, with glass. So let us all pray to the Lord that nothing happens while I'm here trying to put the phone in the place. Oh my god. So getting right into this and starting with the one that you all know that I've read because willingly I will have filmed a review for this and posted it before this video. Let us hope. And if that's the case, as usual, I will leave it up above. And that is Remina, or I don't know. If I was going to say this in Portuguese, I would say Remina because it's an R, and we say because we are aggressive apparently. But since I'm saying this in English, it should be Remina or Remina. In Japanese, I have no fucking idea how to say this. So I'll also say that this book has the title, or this manga has also the title of Hellstar Remina, which I think it's one of the greatest titles in existence, and I'm very sad that it's not here. It's a hardcover Junji Ito manga, which if you've been on my channel for a while, and I will leave it somewhere, I have done reviews of all of the Junji Ito mangas that I have read because I love Junji Ito. He's a horror mangaka. He has one of the creepiest art styles that I've ever seen. He does a lot of body gore and body horror, and he has some interesting premises. So yeah. So since I've talked a bit about this already in my review, hopefully, I am not going to tell a lot about this. Remina is basically about this scientist dude. He figures out there's a wormhole somewhere, he wins the Nobel Prize, and one day a planet comes out of that wormhole, and he decides to name the planet with the name of his beloved daughter, Remina. So one day, they see that the planet is starting to eat the stars and the other planets of the solar system, and he or it, most likely, is reaching out towards Earth. So people start panicking. It's an apocalyptic book, which if you're feeling the effects of pandemic fatigue, do not read this because it might be triggering, since chaos and apocalyptic situations that involved worldwide nation are happening. Even though it's not a virus, it's a planet that wants to eat you, but still, it could be triggering, I don't know. And people start thinking that since Remina has the same name that the planet, then it's her fault that the planet is trying to eat them, which obviously will not end up well. So yeah. I actually enjoyed it. I did felt like the ending was a bit, oh, so that's where we're going with that. Cool, okay, but the rest of the manga was actually pretty interesting, and as usual, I love Junji Ito's style. I'm going to show you the first pages because literally it's the first pages, so it's not a spoiler. This is the eye of the planet. The planet has an eye, people. Yes, it's creepy as fuck. And this is Crucified Girl and a mob with pitchforks. It's interesting, isn't it? Also, the end pages of this. The planet has a tongue. And it likes to lick, which might be a problem. Or not, if you're into that sort of shit, I don't know. So yeah, Remina. That's the first thing that I've read. Well, not the first thing, but it's the first thing that I'm going to show you in this wrap-up. The next manga that I've read, I have also got it in this month, so that's good because I'm reading stuff that I got in the month whilst shitting all over the rest of my TBR, let's just say, and that is The Garden of Words. The story of this is by Makoto Shinkai, and the art is by Midori Motohashi. And if you don't know Makoto Shinkai, he's a filmmaker, a director of animated movies, and he does the stories, and then the stories are adapted into manga. I have a lot of his works, and I really appreciate his works. They're always very sensitive, and they have to do with topics of relationships between people. However, this one was not my favorite work by him. It wasn't bad, but I felt like something was missing. It had a lot in terms of ambience and in terms of dialogue, let's say, like quotable sort of situations. It also approached some difficult topics, but in terms of relationship, it was a bit fantasious, if you know what I mean. So I'm just gonna tell you what this is about. The Garden of Words is about two strangers. This kid, he's still in high school, and this woman, and she is not working currently. And they don't know each other, they've never met, but one day they meet in this garden when it's raining, and they're both looking for a place to be, so the rain goes out, and they meet, and she quotes at him a poem that he doesn't know what it means or what the rest of the poem is about, and he has no idea what the fuck she just said. But they start meeting regularly when it's raining in that place, and they form an unlikely friendship, sort of a relationship, since they don't know anything about each other, so it's a bit strange. And I feel a little like that relationship is a bit forced. We are supposed to believe like they don't know anything about each other, but they just, I don't know, something attracts them to each other. It's just, I don't know. I feel like Makoto Shinkai, and because I've read other mangas by him, can do really good relationship work with the characters. And I felt like this was missing a bit. But what is good about this is that it's just one volume. So if you like ambience, sort of weathering, beautiful type mangas, this is a really cool manga to read. If not, I wouldn't really say you shouldn't, but I also really wouldn't say you should. It's sort of like a 3-star. It's in the in-between. It's not my favorite manga ever, but I don't hate it as well. I don't know. I just noticed that I'm chewing on my lip and there's skin there. Oh my god. And then I feel myself, I mean, of course. The next manga that I read is actually an adaptation, and that is The Hound and Other Stories, which is originally by H.P. Lovecraft, and this is an adaptation and artwork by Go Tanabe. So Go Tanabe apparently is a very known mangaka for actually doing H.P. Lovecraft adaptations. I have 2 more mangas that together form the story of The Mountains of Madness by this author. But I don't know, I believe there's more, but I'm not sure. So as you probably know, H.P. Lovecraft is known as the father of the eldritch horror, the strange horror, the sort of, not really cosmic horror, but like strange anxiety-inducing horror. And these are some of the short stories that he wrote, and they are adapted into manga format. The artwork of this is really cool. It's not an artwork that I'm really used to because it's really incredibly dark, and it's sort of made, it's better if I show you. It's a bit anxiety-inducing, which I think it's completely appropriate for H.P. Lovecraft stories, and it's a little bit monster-y, which is also a big theme of Lovecraft stories. So I would say if you like Lovecraft, you've never read manga, this would be a good way to get into manga, since it's an adaptation of his works. If you've read manga, but you've never read Lovecraft, this would be a good way to get into Lovecraft and into horror. But I would advise trigger warnings for mutilations. I would also advise trigger warnings for high anxiety, which I felt a bit while reading this, because you never know what's going to happen. You feel a lot of depressive solitude and like something out there is around you whilst not being there. it was really cool. I do recommend if you're a fan of horror to pick this up, because even if you've read Lovecraft or you haven't read it, and even though knowing that Lovecraft wasn't exactly the best person in the world, you are actually not paying him anything or giving him anything because he's dead and nobody gives a shit anymore. So this is an author that is alive and that has a really great artwork and a really great feel onto the manga, and it's really cool and original to read something that makes you feel while you're reading, and not just, oh look, the artwork is pretty, which also helps, but it's not what we're aiming for when we're reading horror. So yeah, I do recommend, if you haven't understood that, I do. Then the next manga that I've read is a continuation of a series that I'm actually reading, and that I'm very, very pleased that I didn't give up on this series, which I wouldn't have, but one day, very, very far into the past, I thought I would, but I didn't, and that's great. And that is A Promise Neverland. This is by, I should know this by now, Kayu Shirai and Posuke Misu, sorry, and this is volume 17, which just came out here in my country. Well, it just came out. Okay, so basically I get my books, my comic books and manga from the comic book store, and they get them from America. So this has to come out in America and then has to be transported here, which means I always read shit late. But that's me, late to the party. So The Promised Neverland, as you probably know because I haven't shut up about it ever, is this sort of dystopian small horror story about these children. They live in an orphanage and their lives are pretty cool and dandy. And one day they figure out that when they are adopted, they are actually shipped to be killed and eaten by monsters. And so they decide, nah, we don't want to die. We don't really like that. So they decide to escape. And they figure out that the world is a little bit more dangerous than they thought while they were overprotected in the orphanage. And so it's sort of a chess game between them and the monsters that are after them and how the world is right now. It's very, very interesting. The beginning of it is really cool. The middle lags a bit, but now the ending, which I believe it's going to be the ending because I think it's only 20 volumes, so I'm almost there, I hope. The end of this is being incredible. You're having a lot of morally great characters. You're having a lot of decisions that aren't always easy. You're having to root for some people, but then you're rooting for others and they're completely different. And yeah, it's great. It's dystopic. It's a little bit horror since it has a lot of blood and a lot of... The thematic is not good, of course, and you have a lot of gun violence, you have a lot of gore, you have obviously mutilations, and that's not really nice. But for some people that aren't used to horror but don't have a lot of trigger warnings, or triggers actually, I think this will be a good entrance into horror since it's not that gory as others, like Junji Ito, for instance. So of course I recommend The Promised Neverland. I know there's an adaptation. I personally haven't seen it, but I have heard people saying that the first season of it was incredible. Now the second one is coming out, so I have to see it, and I would probably recommend you do so because it should be great with the space material. And now for the actual book that I finished this month, which I started in December, that is Darkdawn by J. Kristoff. So I finally finished, there, proving me right, the Nevernight Chronicles, and I am very, very happy. I do know that there's been some controversy, particularly on Twitter, about J. Kristoff. I don't know what's going on exactly, so I'm not going to give my opinion, but I will try and check so that I can tell you if I review any more of his books, because we have to know about these stuff. But as of now, I just love everything he's written that I've read, which is Nevernight Chronicles, basically, because I haven't read anything else that he's written, which is very, very sad. So the Nevernight Chronicles are basically 3 books, The Nevernight, God's Grave, and Darkdawn, and these are basically the story of our main character, Mia. She has seen her whole family being killed because of something, and this is heavily inspired by ancient Rome. So you have senators. You can see that the inspiration for the main city of this is Venice, which is incredible because I've been in Italy and I can understand the visualization of what this is meant to be, but Mia from a young age is training to be an assassin, and she's gonna go to an assassin school because she wants to kill specific people that had to do with the death of her family, which already is awesome. But this book was perfect. This was the best for me. I know that some people have controversial opinions on this, but this for me was the best book of the trilogy. I have dog-eared. Yes, you've heard me. I have dog-eared. I don't dog-ear books almost ever, unless there are really old versions of classics and I want to just mark some quotes. But I dog-eared things because it was perfect. It was so perfect. I do believe that the entirety of the trilogy is not a metaphor because this is a fantasy book and it shows, but it can be interpreted as a metaphor for not letting fear overcome you, because you can have fear, but you should not let him rule you. And your fears make you stronger, but you cannot let them pull you down. And it was just so great. There was just so many things that resonated with me. Our main character is a badass. She's bisexual, which I loved. I absolutely loved. There's a lot of steamy romance. There's a lot of fantasy. There's a lot of assassinations, which means there's also a lot of trigger warnings. And I can't list you all of them because at the top of my head, I don't remember all of them. But of course, there's mutilations. There's death. There's obviously grief, death of family, of course. There is descriptions of horrifying body situations. Yeah, there's a lot of death. There's a lot of terrible things, but it's an awesome book. And I know that some people have problems because this trilogy has a method of narration that relies heavily on footnotes, and the footnotes are really big, but the footnotes are a part of the entertainment for me, and I really enjoyed how Jay Kristoff told the story through it, and I really enjoy how he approached all of the characters. I really liked all of the characters. Did I like all of the characters? I think so. I think even characters that I wanted to hate, I like the way that they were written, so that's good. So this for me was an amazing experience. If you haven't read it, I would recommend, because I really, really liked it, and I cannot wait to read more of his works, to be honest, because I want to know what he can do. If you're not ready to have your heart ripped out of your chest, do not pick this up for a while, and then do, because you need to feel something. So yeah, so that's going to be all for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you've read any of these books and have opinions like mine or not like mine, we all love to hear opinions here, so leave it in the comments down below. And that's going to be it for today. So happy readings to you all. Bye!